If you had not found yourself in the pharmaceutical industry, what would you be doing every day?
I would definitely be, have built a business, and that business would be focused on really how to bring help people move from their situations. Right. I think that everybody should have the opportunity to be uplifted.
Yeah, I think I'll probably be somewhere in the Kavango regions, working on my mahangu field and plowing and just living off the land. Good day, my name is Dr. Boni Singu, and today I'm paying host to Dr. Angela James. She's a pharma expert from the United States of America, and we are privileged to have her today here. She is on a visit to Namibia, and we've asked her to share some insights on the pharmaceutical industry, what it takes to build, what it takes to maintain, and succeed in this industry. Dr. James, you're welcome.
Well, thank you for that nice, kind, warm introduction.
Thank you.
I have been in the biopharma industry for almost 25 years, actually. I have worked in roles in clinical pharmacology, so as a clinical pharmacology lead, the project leader role, as well as vice president of heading clinical pharmacology at a small biotech, and then vice president of clinical development, where I manage that development of assets in the oncology pipeline. So very pleased to be here.
Thank you, thank you. So we've invited you to give some insights on the pharmaceutical industry. Perhaps just briefly again, you could highlight some of your career successes and experiences, different companies you've worked for, what it is that you've done in those companies.
Okay, so I'm going to call this the roses and the thorns. I'm going to give you the highs and maybe some of the lows. Yes. So I started off. So first, I finished my doctorate at the University of Maryland, Baltimore, and I focused on modeling and simulation of a series of compounds developed to treat prostate cancer. And so that was a really great experience that I was able to bring into my career, and which I started at Alcon Laboratories, which subsequently was acquired by Novartis. So going into that first job, what I did learn is how much I did not know. And so we are in our school settings, we are taught, really our particular technical expertise. So how to be a researcher, how to think, how to problem solve. And that's all great because you will need it. But when I went into the, drug development, pharmaceutical industry, drug development has a host of different functions that are all working together to bring a drug from development to market. And what I didn't know is how were clinical trials conducted? Who were the experts involved in running a clinical trial? That's the most basic part of drug development. And as a clinical pharmacologist, we carry the weight and the responsibility of determining the dose and dose regimen of a drug. And so you can imagine that with the technology that we now have and the understanding of data sciences, bringing our qualitative tools to that thinking process, we are an integral part of drug development from the non-clinical through clinical and even to post-marketing. So being able to use qualitative tools to assess the dose regimen, but everything that impacts that, whether it's inherent or external, or I guess with intrinsic and extrinsic factors such as weight, gender, if you're age, certain age groups, all of those things come into play. But now we are dealing with polypharmacy, and that all comes into play. I've spent the last almost 20 years in oncology. And so you can imagine someone who has an oncology diagnosis has a number of comorbidities as well as polypharmacy. They're using all types of drugs. And so we've got to really understand how to characterize the safety and efficacy of our drug with all of those elements going on.
Thank you very much. So Namibia is just about 35 years old now, post-independence. We're a small population, about 3 million people. Our pharmaceutical industry is really in infancy, if at all existing. The United States, by contrast, is over 200 years old. You've had time to grow and develop that pharmaceutical industry. Could you please shed some light on what are some key catalysts that have enabled growth of the pharma or biotech industry in the US? And perhaps what could a small country, developing country like Namibia learn from that?
Sure. So I'll start with the investment component because I don't think any industry can grow without adequate investment. And our investment has come from not just our government through the NIH, but also through private investors, venture capitalists. And then we have a regulatory framework that has really evolved and aligns with the way we develop drugs. And so it is a give and take. It's not that the FDA sets the guidance without having the information from the industry and academia. And so I think of I think what drives our pharmaceutical industry is an ecosystem of academia, industry, and then regulatory. And it's a constant evolving framework or ecosystem where technology now drives it and moves it faster. And so I would say, so if I were to take AI, AI is really based from neural networks. So back in the 90s, when I started graduate school, neural networks was my first project, but we did not have the technology to really advance. You couldn't even do a model because it would just take too long to run. Now we have computer systems that can move, very quickly. You could do models and, within minutes you have a result. So AI really has come along, right? Just in the last 5 years, I would say, is the advance.
I just wanted to pull out what you said there,
Sure.
which is the ecosystem that must exist between academia, industry, and the regulatory, which is actually the private sector, the government, and academia, which is kind of in between.
Yes.
Could you perhaps say a bit on what role industry really plays in building a pharmaceutical industry?
So the industry is the business part of that ecosystem. Academia, though, is the innovative part of that. And so I don't think there are any pharma or biotech companies that do not have partnerships with academia for the most part. You need that innovation, and then the business side of that.
The capital comes in.
Right, exactly. And so what academia does best is to create. The ideas and the creativity come out of academia because you're not encumbered, really. You're not encumbered by these processes, these standard operating procedures, all kinds of things. So there's this creativity, and you can learn and confirm and go, do that many times. The industry part of it, though, we can take that idea and now bring it to fruition, right? So we're taking it out of the lab, we're putting it into the clinic. We have, is this a novel entity? Is this are we understanding the biology better now? Can we target things? So we can, as an industry, make the investment of the resources that are needed to really move things faster.
And the third leg here is regulatory.
Yes.
Who has to flex some muscles,
That's
I
right.
guess, to ensure that whatever is coming to the market is safe.
Yes.
And that no one is abusing their powers. Do you think regulatory has too much power? Perhaps should their power be checked, or should they be given all the power to make sure that the products are safe?
So the regulatory's first responsibility is safety of the patient, first and foremost. You can have something that's maybe highly efficacious, but if it's not safe, it's not going to be of use, right? So in terms of their power, and I've been in meetings, face-to-face meetings with the FDA, with EMA in Europe, the Japanese PMDA, China's FDA, a number of different countries. And I don't necessarily think that the power is abused. What I do believe, though, is that you have to work in concert to really come up with the best practices and the guidances that drive drug development. So it's not industry should sit higher or the regulatory authorities should sit higher. It's really that they work as partners. And so that's why it's so important to really start those engagements early in the process. Many times we file an IND in the US when we talk about a drug that we want to start researching. So you're going to have those discussions earlier. And I know in the FDA, they've been opening up new meetings actually when it really came to dose optimization, right? They're asking that we come in early and earlier. So this is where clinical pharmacology comes into play as well, as really being a driver and a critical representative in those meetings to talk about, where is the window or the sweet spot for safety and efficacy when it comes to a drug.
Yeah, thank you so much. I would like to delve more on the regulatory. So the equivalent to the FDA in Namibia is the Namibia Medicines Regulatory Council. One would think it still doesn't have enough resources, enough capacity to really be able to do its work properly. What do you think are the components of a functional regulatory authority?
Sure. So the different regulatory authorities are all a little bit different, but the FDA is one of the few that has scientific experts who are the reviewers. There are health authorities that reviewers are not necessarily experts in that area. So they could be reviewing clinical pharmacology, but they're not clinical pharmacologists. The FDA has someone in each of those areas who's going to review that section of an IND or NDA or BLA. And I think so training or developing that talent, definitely if you could do it, homegrown talent, that's going to be the best, right? Because you understand what the public needs, your public needs. But having the expertise is definitely needed. It makes it a lot harder for us on the industry side when we go into a region where they don't have that expertise. And so you spend a lot of time educating and explaining and then justifying why you designed a study this way or what these data mean, as opposed to having a reviewer who's an expert in that particular technical area.
Yeah, thank you so much. So moving on, I would like to ask about perhaps what developing countries need or require for them to have a pharmaceutical manufacturing industry which is sustainable and cost effective. If we talk about developing countries, there's always the shortage of finances. So for you to be able to build a long-lasting pharmaceutical manufacturing industry, thinking about our country now, 2.8 million, 3 million, what do we need to make sure that this industry remains cost-effective and sustainable?
Yes. So pharmaceutical manufacturing is multifaceted. It's not just small molecules anymore, right? There are these biologics, there are proteins, there's bioreactors that are tabletop. And so there's a way to actually, I think, start in manufacturing at a scale that makes sense for the size of the country and the population. I don't know out of that 2.8 or 3 million people who are kind of how many are at working ages. But I would say like developing a talent pool. So the skill sets and how does that come about? It doesn't mean that you necessarily need a 4-year degree. There are people who work in manufacturing who may have an associate's degree or a certification, but specialized training is definitely going to help because they need to be able to know that job. And I don't disagree with programs that are outside of a typical 4-year degree. I think also the government has to look at how to bring in industry. So what about Namibia would attract a pharmaceutical industry? You have so many resources here. You have people, you have a really stable government. Those things I think really help in a developing country, right? And so they have confidence. And so what else would you do to bring in those companies? So you have University of Namibia. You have a pharmacy school. You have talent that is homegrown, and I believe you can do technical programs as well that would align with what is needed in manufacturing. Because it's not just the people who are doing the formulation development and so forth. It's the people who work the lines or any of the robotics systems, things like that are going to be important. So you have to think about it as the holistic manufacturing, and not just this, do we need someone with a PhD or a master's in engineering to be in the manufacturing field?
What types of components of the education system need to sort of support that kind of philosophy towards manufacturing? What do we need in our educational system? How should it look like? What are the focus areas and priorities that we should bring out in education?
That's a good question. And I'm not sure I have like a perfect answer, but I do have a friend who is building something like this in a community college in the Chicago area. And some of the things that she is focused on is so basic scientific skills, right? So pipetting, how to do a scientific experiment, right? Weighing something, understanding, how to convert numbers, things like that. And so
science,
that's
just
the science
STEM.
and just STEM, but really some of the fundamentals of it, right? And then building on that would be the hands-on piece. So for instance, there's a company that has a VR system that teaches you without having the actual bioreactor. Yes, you can learn how to do it through the VR, and they're looking for people who would like to train. So I think we need to think about how to utilize technology to fill in the gaps that a developing country may have, right? We don't need to say you need to develop everything. You don't need to look like the US to be able to have pharmaceutical manufacturing. What you need is to understand how to attract, where what do you use to attract the company? Where do you want to be in terms of skill sets? And so how to develop either certification programs or some kinds of training, technical training programs for the Namibians. And then, and I think that alone, just having a workforce is going to be attractive to a pharmaceutical manufacturing company.
Thank you so much. So at the University of Namibia, we train pharmacists, 4-year program, and a part of the training is a hands-on experience, and we try to send them to pharmaceutical manufacturers in the country. Having a small market, small population, there's just one manufacturer really that we are able to send the students to, and they have been very, very collaborative, supportive. I don't think we would have done much without their input into our training. They're called biopharma. Some of them some of the students, we send them to the neighboring countries to have this experience. So in my view, and really how things are on ground now, the collaboration between academia and industry is already kind of very, very minimal, and sort of requires very critical care, because academia is very small in essence, and then the industry is also really, really small. Talking of just one company. So what should we do to make sure that we nurture the desire to develop the pharmaceutical industry, given the situation we have in this country?
Sure. So I think one opportunity are professional societies, which are global. And so they have representation from all over the world and want to understand what the unmet need is, right? And so if it is that the students aren't getting enough training, right, or you don't have enough resources for them to have these internships. So typically in pharmacy schools in the US, they rotate, right? They can rotate through companies, they can rotate through the FDA. There's a number of different, and I think they spend maybe 3 to 4 semesters doing those rotations in classes. And so if that is something that, it sounds like that's something that the students would need, why not ask nicely our professional societies to assist us with that? Because professional societies are comprised of people from industry, academia, and all over the world, right? And the regulatory authority. So they can definitely say, hey, we have some opportunities, or we can create an opportunity. So it doesn't have to be something that's just existing. It could be like, do they have the willingness to create something for an opportunity?
So we should look at ourselves as part of being the global village, so as to say, and reach out to parts of the world who are also friendly and who are
Absolutely.
willing to deal with us.
Absolutely.
That's right. I would like to ask with regard to financing.
Sure.
Yeah. So, what kinds of incentives, fiscal, infrastructure, policy, does the US government provide to attract and retain pharmaceutical investments? And can these be realistically adapted in a small country like Namibia?
Yes. So it's not just the federal government, the state governments
Ah,
offer. So for many decades, right? New Jersey, New York area has been a bastion of farmland. That's what it was called, farmland. That's where almost every pharmaceutical company had um, a, a, a site. And now Boston has grown into this hub as well, and then there's the West Coast in California. And so those are kind of the three major hubs of the biopharma industry. You have to look at what those states have offered them, because Boston was not like that 15 years ago.
okay.
So it's grown. Why has it grown? They offer tax incentives. I'm sure they offered them, some types of incentives to appeal to companies to move there.
Yeah.
Boston is not a cheap city; it's not inexpensive.
Mhm.
But if you were going to Boston and the Cambridge area, there's so many pharma companies and biotech companies packed into this one small space. And 15, 20 years ago, that was not the case.
Yeah.
And so really, governments have to look at how to incentivize companies to come.
So basically, it is all about creating an environment that would allow for pharma companies to invest, perhaps to come into the country, or even to start. But I must put it to you that there are some big players out there on the global stage: India, China,
Yeah.
the US, Europe, and it is very difficult. Let's just take the example of our country to compete with these titans. Is it practical really for companies to thrive, pharmaceutical companies to thrive in a small market against these giants, or is there a seat for everyone on the global pharmaceutical market?
I definitely think there's a seat. I don't think that, and so when I hear you talk, if I close my eyes, what I hear are people in the biotech space when they talk about big pharma,
Yeah.
and how do you compete with these whales of companies? You're this little minnow in this pond. So it's really about creating your own space.
Yeah.
And what is your sweet spot, and what is going to attract people to Namibia?
Yeah.
Not trying to be the US or China. These countries have large populations. You can't base it on we have a workforce. We have the numbers to have this huge workforce. You can say we have a workforce that is skilled and have expertise in these particular areas. And those are areas that align with certain parts of pharma, right? It doesn't have to be anything. Maybe you're generics. So where did India come in? India came in under generics, I believe, initially.
Yeah.
They were not novel.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Why not look at some of those different avenues to say we want to develop skill sets in a workforce that's specific in these particular, like, prioritize your areas. Don't try to do everything.
Yeah.
Try to do a few things, but do them very well.
Exactly. Now, looking at some success stories in the pharmaceutical space, I'm thinking of China now. There are some mammoth companies in China which are state-owned.
Yes.
That actually manufacture drugs and now they export. I know the US is a more capitalistic society,
Sure.
and but looking at these two models of entering into the space, which one would you advise the Namibian situation to follow?
Can you borrow a little bit of both? I think.
Okay.
So I think that the government coming to help stand up pharma in China was a good thing. And so one of the things I noticed when China first opened its borders, and I was working in industry, and all the companies started flowing in. There, though, are some restrictions in China that they have maintained. The other thing they were doing, their CFDA, which is their health authority, was constantly evolving. And so you have to be willing, or have a system that's willing to say, we learn, now we need to change. We learn, now we need to change. So they went through a whole process in China, not just from the the industry side, but also the regulatory side. And again, they go hand in hand.
Mhm.
So that piece, I think it's good that the government comes in because it's the inception of something new. So they come in, they support it, they provide a nice foundation, like a stable foundation, and then but the goal is to move toward more of a capitalistic part, right?
Yeah.
And so there is money that's being generated, revenue that's being generated, that's coming back into the country, into the, to where people have jobs, where the country is actually earning money as well, and that is growing the economy. And so you have to look at it, from those different aspects. And I think you could borrow from both, from China, the nationalistic model, but the capitalistic model as well.
Yeah, I think that's the way to go. I think in the past 1 week, the president of this republic unveiled the National Development Plan, NDP 6, which is a strategic document for the next 5 years.
Okay.
And it was also announced that we will, as a government, the government will be breaking ground for a new manufacturing site initiated by the government.
Wow.
Now, Dr. James, can you please advise on some pitfalls to avoid when starting a pharma industry, such as what you would like to do in this country?
Pitfalls. Oh, well, maybe overbuilding without the right capacity in mind. So, and I think lack of planning.
Yeah.
That's very important. I would also say, so making sure your regulatory authority, though, if you're under resourced, then there needs to be more people trained, I think, to go into the regulatory authority. You need that framework, because you still have to keep people safe. And so, and to have an efficient system of reviewing drug submissions. So that's going to be really important. That's also going to be attractive to pharma companies.
Yeah.
Also, I would say is really, so one, aligning with the health needs of not just Namibia, but if you're marketing outside of Namibia, understand where you want to go. And lastly, the workforce. Workforce development is just critical. You want to do the best with the best. And so you want to develop that workforce that is highly skilled, with the technical expertise that is relevant. So again, I think you need to look at innovative ways to do the training and the skill development, and not just focus it on the universities. I think the universities could support it, but they could build and expand to maybe reach many more communities.
How can Namibia leverage digital health, AI, and biotechnology trends to leapfrog traditional barriers in pharma and R&D product?
So, as an example, when you develop a drug, you go through basically 3 phases: phase 1, 2, 3 of drug development, right? Phase 1 is your first in human, usually, or first in indication. And you only have maybe 40 patients or so, 40, 50 patients, let's say. It's dose escalation. You're trying to figure out some range of dose regimen. You don't need a large batch for that, right? But many biotech companies who don't have any approved products, they're not generating revenue. So this is the microcosm of Namibia. They don't have any revenue. They have investors. They have some people who invest in money so they can pay. They may only have a team of 10 people. Okay, but they're doing drug development because they're outsourcing a lot of that. So when they need batches, they don't need to go to the same companies that what we call the CDMOs, the manufacturing organizations that generate for a Pfizer, right? They need something that makes sense. It's fit for purpose. That means that they're generating a small batch that meets the needs of their small study. Why can't you do that? You don't have to compete. You have to figure out where you want to be. And I think something like that seems very reasonable in Namibia, because it allows you to get grounded, figure it out, work through the process. You can improve it and optimize it, and then you scale. I do believe that you need to do proof of concept and before you scale to something larger. So you want to be able to tweak whatever your process is, your manufacturing, what works best for this country, your talent force, what works best, and then how do you scale from that? So don't look at the big piece, look at the smaller piece that you can optimize, become the expert.
Yeah, that is, I think that's a very good idea and recommendation. For anyone out there who is trying to get into the pharma space, that is one way to go, one sure way to go. Dr. James, one last question.
Sure.
With regards to clinical trials. I know you are in that space as
I
well.
am.
Yes. So looking at Namibia, how can Namibia fit into clinical trials? How can we benefit and build an industry?
And so you need representative populations in your clinical trials that reflect the real world patient populations.
Yeah.
And so no longer can you say, I'm going to develop a drug for prostate cancer, metastatic prostate cancer, with 80% of the participants in a clinical trial being white men.
Yeah.
They have, when you have 70% of the patients who are Black men.
Well, Dr. Angela James, thank you so much for your time.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you for sharing all the golden nuggets. And viewers, thank you so much for spending your time with us. I hope you have learned so much from this discussion and that you will put some things into practice. Until next time, thank you and stay safe.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.